All right, welcome. Today we're going to go on a bit of an architectural tour, but not of some fancy building. Nope, we're going inside the cell itself to explore the incredible hidden framework that makes all of life possible. So, have you ever actually stopped to wonder about that? I mean, your body is made of trillions of cells. What's stopping them all from just collapsing into a bunch of microscopic puddles? What gives them any shape at all? It's a great question. And the answer is just so elegant. And here it is, the cytoskeleton. You can think of it as this bustling, microscopic city of protein fibers. It gives the cell its structure, sure, but it also lets it move around, and even acts like a highway system for shipping all the vital stuff from one place to another. Now, this isn't some rigid, permanent scaffold. Not at all. A much better way to think of it is like biological Lego pieces. The cell is constantly building up and tearing down this framework to meet its needs, whether it's got to move, divide, or just change its shape. Okay, so this whole cytoskeleton thing is made up of three main types of fibers. Let's start with the smallest and most flexible of the bunch, the microfilaments. These are really the cell's primary movers and shapers. And when I say small, I mean it. They're just 7 nanometers thick. To put that in perspective, that makes them the absolute skinniest fibers in this entire network, just incredibly thin. They're built from a protein you might have heard of called actin. The strands coil around each other, kind of like two ropes being twisted together. And that structure is exactly what gives them this amazing combination of flexibility and strength. So what do they actually do? Well, a ton. They form this support mesh right under the cell's outer skin, the membrane, almost like the frame of a tent holding the canvas up. They're also the power behind every single muscle contraction you make. They even let cells, like our white blood cells, literally crawl around. And so important, they form the little ring that pinches a cell into 2 new cells during division. Okay, let's move on to the next component. Meet the microtubules. Now, if microfilaments are the cell's flexible ropes, then microtubules, well, these are the rigid beams and the superhighways of the cell. And the difference in scale here is pretty significant. At 25 nanometers, they are the thickest of all 3 fiber types. We're talking more than 3 times thicker than those microfilaments we just saw. Their shape really tells you everything you need to know about their job. They're these hollow, rigid cylinders. This structure makes them fantastic pillars for providing support, but it also makes them the perfect tracks for moving things around inside the cell. And their to-do list is absolutely critical. They provide that rigidity, stopping the cell from getting crushed. They act as this internal railway system where these tiny little motor proteins literally walk along them, carrying cargo. They also make up the core of cilia and flagella, the little hair-like tails that help cells swim or, say in your airways, sleep all the gunk out. And during cell division, they build a whole spindle that pulls the chromosomes apart with incredible precision. In short, they're essential for keeping the cell organized. And that brings us to our third and final player, the intermediate filaments. If you want, you can think of these as the tough guys of the cell. They are its durable support cables, and they're built for one main purpose: pure strength. Size-wise, they sit right in that just right spot in the middle, at about 10 nanometers thick. So not as skinny as microfilaments, not as chunky as microtubules, but perfectly designed for their role. Seriously, the best analogy here is steel cables. If microtubules are the train tracks, these are the heavy-duty cables holding the entire structure together, making sure it can handle stress. Their main job is to endure all that pulling and stretching and stop the cell from just ripping apart. So yeah, their functions are all about durability. They provide that raw mechanical strength, which is super important in tissues that get stretched a lot, like your skin. They also anchor the nucleus and other organelles, basically locking them in place so they don't just float around. And here's a key difference. Unlike the other two, which are always changing, these filaments are a much more permanent, stable part of the scaffold. Okay, so we've met the 3 key players in the crew. Now let's put them all side by side. Let's do a little face-off to really lock in what makes each one unique. First up, the microfilaments. Remember, these are our flexible and thin fibers. They're all about movement and shape-shifting. Then you've got the microtubules, pretty much the opposite, rigid and thick. They are the cell's structural pillars and internal highways. And finally, rounding out the team, the intermediate filaments. Their whole deal is strength and stability. They're the durable anchors. Let's just quickly break it down with this chart. The protein building blocks are different. actin, tubulin, and then a whole bunch of others for the intermediate filaments, like keratin. Thickness is easy. Thinnest, thickest, and medium right in between. Their structure is totally distinct too. You've got twisted strands, hollow tubes, and these tough rope-like bundles. And maybe the most important difference for their job. See how microfilaments and microtubules are super dynamic, always changing? Well, intermediate filaments are built to last. They're way more stable. So we've gone through what the cytoskeleton is, we've seen how all its parts work, but why does any of this microscopic stuff actually matter to us, in our actual lives? Well, to put it simply, when the framework weakens, life falters. This isn't just some abstract biology concept. This internal framework is absolutely fundamental to our health. And when it goes wrong, the consequences can be really severe. I mean, the cytoskeleton is involved in pretty much everything. It's what's powering your muscles as you move right now. Faulty filaments are directly linked to diseases like muscular dystrophy. And those tangled microtubules are a classic sign of Alzheimer's disease. The process of wound healing, and even the incredible journey of an embryo developing from a single cell. All of it depends on this dynamic scaffolding. It is truly the engine of life at the smallest possible scale. It's just an amazing, unbelievably complex system that works tirelessly inside every single one of us. Which, kind of leaves you with a final thought. If this is just one of the cell's hidden systems, what other invisible engines are powering you right this very second?